It didn't arrive with certainty, not in a way that could be explained or easily defined, and certainly not in the way most people imagine when something truly important begins. It came quietly, almost like a memory that didn't belong to the past, but to something deeper, something that had always existed beneath the surface of everything, waiting not to be created, but to be noticed. At first, it felt familiar not because it had happened before, but because it felt like something the soul already understood without needing words. A calm that didn't depend on circumstances, a presence that didn't need to be seen to be real, something that didn't interrupt life, but moved through it gently, patiently, without forcing anything to change. And yet, in that quiet movement, everything slowly began to change. Not outside, where people expect transformation to be visible, but inside, where it often goes unnoticed by everyone except the one experiencing it. There were moments, small and almost invisible, where something shifted in ways that didn't make sense logically. A reaction that would have once been immediate paused without effort. A thought that would have turned into worry softened before it could take hold. A feeling that once felt heavy became lighter without any clear reason. No one else noticed these changes because nothing outwardly dramatic had happened. But the one feeling, it knew something was different. Not louder, not stronger, just undeniably real in a way that couldn't be ignored or easily dismissed. It didn't demand attention, it didn't ask for belief, and it didn't try to prove itself in ways that would satisfy the need for certainty. It simply existed, steady and quiet, like something that had no urgency to be accepted because it knew that in time it would be recognized. And maybe that is what made it impossible to forget. Because even when life returned to its usual rhythm, even when distractions filled every space and noise covered every quiet moment, that feeling remained. Not always present, not always clear, but never completely gone. Returning in unexpected moments, like a gentle reminder that something deeper was still there, something that refused to disappear completely. Some tried to push it away, not because it was harmful, but because it felt too close, too personal, too real in a way that made it uncomfortable to face. Because to acknowledge it meant facing something within themselves they had spent years avoiding. Questions they had carefully ignored. Truths they were not ready to accept, and a presence that didn't fit within the limits of what they thought they understood about life and reality. And so they distracted themselves. They filled their time, they moved faster. They avoided stillness at all costs, because deep down they knew that silence was where it returned, and silence was the one place they could not control what they would feel. And in that silence, there was no denying it, not as a voice that could be heard or a vision that could be seen, but as something that simply existed, undeniable in its presence, without needing to announce itself. A presence that did not come and go, a peace that did not belong to the moment, a stillness that felt alive in a way that contradicted everything they had been taught to expect from something real. And somewhere, without planning it, without searching for it, someone stopped running from it, not because they suddenly understood it, but because they were tired. Tired of the noise, tired of pretending everything made sense, tired of carrying something they were never meant to carry alone. And in that moment, without fully knowing why, They allowed themselves to feel it completely, not with fear, not with doubt, but with a quiet openness they hadn't felt in a long time. And that is when something shifted in a way that could no longer be ignored. Not the world around them, not their circumstances, but their awareness of what had been there all along. What was once subtle became undeniable. What was once distant became near. What was once confusing became clear, not through explanation, but through presence. And in that presence, there was something they could no longer deny. Not a command that demanded obedience, not a force that imposed itself, but an invitation, soft, patient, and unforced, asking nothing except that they stop resisting, stop questioning everything, and simply receive what was already being given. And in doing so, something within them finally rested, not because everything was solved, not because life suddenly became easy, but because they were no longer alone in the way they had always believed. And maybe that is where it truly begins. Not when everything makes sense, not when all doubts disappear, but when you stop needing proof and start recognizing what has been there all along, quietly, patiently waiting without pressure or urgency. And if that moment comes in silence, without warning, without explanation, without anything that forces you to notice it, would you recognize it? Or would you let it pass? Just like every other moment, you were too distracted to truly see.